Now, the last game before Christmas is the trip to QPR. It's going to be another sold-out away end, which is exciting. Steve, when we've struggled against some of the bottom half sides, it maybe won't be as easy as we would think on paper, but this should be a decent away win.
You'd like to think so. I mean, QPR obviously made the managerial change about 6 weeks ago now, I think. Gareth Ainsworth got binned off. That was never realistically. I don't think that was ever going to work.
Who's the new manager there, Steve?
Spanish fella called Marty Cifuentes. I think I've pronounced that right.
Perfect.
I mean, he's had an impact. New manager bounce and all that, and QPR aren't cut adrift at the bottom, which is probably more than they were expecting at this stage, given the way they'd started the season. But having made that half decent start, they now kind of seem to be slumping back a little bit into old sort of bad habits. Home draw against Plymouth in midweek, where Plymouth had 10 men for I think more than an hour, couldn't score, 0-0, and they were 1-0 up at Sheffield Wednesday with 5 minutes to go yesterday, and somehow contrived to lose. 1 point from 2 games against relegation rivals just before Christmas is not ideal when you've got a side like us coming to town. But that, I mean, let's be honest, it'll be a very different game. That QPR will go into that game with no expectations of getting anything out of it, and they will. I'm sure they will look to frustrate again.
I mean, for them, Glenn, I guess the motivation is if they win, there's a chance to climb out of the relegation zone. So you would think they would be up for it. I think their manager said, they just did it, and some sort of analogy about they need to keep on paddling and they just need to be in it and just trying to grind out a few results. So it's not going to be pretty, potentially.
No, and their season won't be defined by what they do against us or against the other 3 teams at the top. So they'll see it as a free hit, and they'll go for it. And if they get beat, they're expecting to get beat. So, I mean they're actually decent at home for a team that's down near the bottom. I think they lost to Leicester. They haven't lost at home since they lost to Leicester, which was at the end of October. So, they've put together a few results at home. So they're, I don't think it's going to be. It's certainly not going to be easy. But it is a game that we should certainly, fly into, thinking we're not going to give these any chance at all today. And we're going to, whether, I mean, I don't know anything about this, Mr. Cifuentes, whether he wants to set up his team to play 10 at the back at home, or whether, naturally teams at home, they do come out a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see what we're faced with. We will obviously have most of the ball, and it's what QPR do with it when they've got it. They got a couple of dangerous players, from what I remember. Can't remember his first name. They got a guy called Chair,
Ilias Chair,
who looks pretty decent. Sinclair Armstrong, their centre forward. I thought he looked really good at St Mary's raw, but he looked half decent. So it's funny when I was, and obviously Ross Stewart got injured. I was thinking, what teams we played against whose centre forward we could possibly sign, and I certainly wouldn't complain if we sort of go in for him. I thought he was decent. I don't know how many goals he's got this year or anything. He might not got any, but I thought he was a proper handful when we played him at St Mary's. So and they've got Lyndon Dykes, who is so good he keeps Che Adams out of the Scotland squad side occasionally. But he's a big lump. So we might be faced with Coventry tactics if he plays, of launching the ball back to front, and that's something for the central defenders and to deal with, and our defensive midfield players picking up the knockdowns and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see what we're faced with. But you'd think with the Spanish manager, they're not traditionally ones for sending the ball 70 yards up the pitch. So it's a massive generalisation there, I realise. So we'll be interesting to see what we're faced with. But
it's going to be a different game. This is the first repeat game, isn't it? The first repeat fixture. So this is going to be a bit different to the game that we saw at St Mary's. From memory, Alfie, that wasn't a classic, but we managed to grind out a win. But 2 very different sides now. I don't think we can learn too much from that earlier matchup in the season.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't know much about QPR either. Same as Stephen Glen know more than I do. You've reminded me of Sinclair Armstrong there. I agree with you. I thought was excellent in that first game, but it won't be easy. No game is, but these are the games you have to win, right? So where we look at Watford and we look at Coventry, and I can sit there and say, well, a point at them is actually a pretty good point. QPR, you have to go to Loftus Road and win. What I will say though is the atmosphere I think is going to be fantastic because the away fans at the moment are brilliant. I did Franny Benali's column on Thursday for his, obviously for the Echo, and we finished talking about Saints, and then about 10 minutes after we finished, he just texted me saying, actually I've just forgot something we need to get about the fans in because they've been fantastic, selling out away ends. I presume QPR sold out a long time ago.
Are you going, Steve? Is that you going to that?
Yes, I am. Yep, looking forward to that. Probably our second most expensive away game this season, I think. 38
How much they're charging?
37 or 38 in the upper tier, I think. I've gone. It's weird because the upper tier at Loftus Road is a very strange structure in that you only actually get a proper view of all of the pitch in the front 3 rows of the upper tier. If you're any further back, then you basically can't see the goal line underneath you, which is obviously not ideal especially when you're kicking towards that goal. So yeah, it's a very strange away end. So I went for lower tier tickets just so I can kind of see everything. And yet strangely the lower tier tickets were cheaper. So yeah, mine was only 31. So it's but it's expensive game this, isn't it?
Yeah. So Glenn, who, in terms of like who we put out and who starts, do you think he's going to have a mind on the fixtures? They were talking about all the fixtures that are coming up at Christmas. Do you think there might be a few surprises, or does he stick with the team that finished on Saturday against Blackburn, but without Fraser because we leave him on the bench and bring him on? There's a few headaches there, isn't there?
Yes and no. I think he more or less knows. Well, he certainly knows his defence. I honestly can't see too much messing around. I don't think there's anyone sort of clamouring for inclusion. Will Stuart Armstrong manage to play all these games in a row? He seems okay at the moment. I thought Charlie Alcaraz apart from the penalty, he was obviously trying really, really hard to do something in yesterday's game when he came on, having been dropped after being pretty ropey at Watford, wasn't it? He was terrible in that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a few who can come in and make a difference. Joe Aribo seems to be fairly settled. It would be tough for him to be left out at the moment. So
do you think he'll start up front though? Do you think he'll start in that false 9? Can you see us like rotating all the 3 around again?
I don't know. I mean, we still have an issue with who plays centre forward. Adam Armstrong was incredibly quiet, I thought, in the game yesterday.
Yeah.
So the forward line, there are still questions there, and that's why someone like Sekou Mara needs to keep playing, because there is a place up for grabs. Until Ross Stewart gets fully fit, if he ever does, there is still a place up for grabs for someone to play as the centre forward. But I would imagine we'll do more or less exactly the same as we tried against Blackburn, where it'll be, the rotating players into that number 10, false 9 position, whatever you want to call it, and Armstrong and Edozie as the 2 furthest forward.
Do you think that experiment worked, Alfie? Do you think we'll see that again?
I think every game will have different tactical demands, to give you a very mundane and politician's answer.
Press conference answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, I mean, I think it'll be the same 11. They may play slightly differently, but I probably would go unchanged as a general rule.
Okay, let's try and do some score predictions on this. If you're watching the live stream, then you can stick your prediction in the comments, and we can see those. We can share some of those. Steve, do you want to start? You're going to be there.
Yeah, I think ultimately this is the sort of game where you've got to stamp your authority on it and make a fast start, and the game becomes very, very, very easy. Sort of beyond that. So, first big away win, I think 3-0.
Nice. Okay, Glenn, you confident as well?
Yeah. I'm going to go 4-1 again.
Just not 4-0.
Not because I think it will happen, but because we did that last week. So yeah, no, I'll same as Steve. I fancy us at the moment to just have something about us to put teams away now. So yeah, famous last words, but yeah, I'll go for that again.
Start helping the goal difference. I'm seeing a lot of 2-1s popping up on the comments. Alfie?
I think 4 of their last 6 games have been to 0, so I will go for another clean sheet. I can't. Do you know what? I can't even count how many clean sheets that'll be for Saints this season, which is just remarkable. I think it's 5 or 6 potentially. So I'll go 2-0 win.
Would that be? No, it wouldn't. I was going to say would that be 3 in a row, but it wouldn't, would it? No. But okay, clean sheet. All right, nice.